Like all Americans, I dream of having a better life. I one day desire to take my family somewhere that leaves me alone, where the money that I saved is not given away to the government, where the weather is perfect, and where the locals are kind rather than destroying local businesses. I, too, dream, as many Americans currently do, of going south, over the border, to the promised land. Interestingly, I am not alone, because I have achieved this dream. I am currently living in Mexico, but a Los Angeles Times column came out the other day outlining how Mexican locals in Mexico City are fed up with the growing number of Americans, many from California, guilty, moving to and visiting the country, which has contributed to rises in rent and the language shifting from Spanish, voila, to English. There are flyers that are popping up all around Mexico City, which state, new to the city, working remotely, you are an effing plague, and the locals effing hate you. Leave. Apparently we are committing cultural appropriation by being here. Or maybe we're changing the Mexican culture in ways that they don't like. The article outlines how Americans have brought the scent of new wave imperialism as taquerias and corner stores slowly transform to coffee shops and Pilates studios. English is also reportedly becoming more and more prevalent as more Americans are moving to Mexico City and other parts of Mexico to take advantage of the lower rent and the ability to stay in Mexico for 6 months without a visa, which can be very convenient. States one Mexican. Mexican is already classist and racist. True, you think that racism only exists in America? People with white skin are given preference. Now if a local wants to go to a restaurant or a club, they just don't have to compete with rich white Mexicans, but with foreigners too. As somebody who's traveled to 60 countries and lived in 6 over the last 4 years, if you can believe that, Mexico is hopefully, I pray, the final stop on this whirlwind tour. The reason that there is such a thing as white privilege around the world, because there is because it is associated with having greater economic possibilities. So you're more likely to be assumed to be wealthy, and nobody wants to miss out on a payday. Thus, you are given preferential treatment and respect because of the association that one has with the skin. Is that racist? In a good way for white people for once lately. Yeah, it is. And it exists everywhere, from Africa to Asia and in Latin America as well. And I've been to all these places and I personally experienced it. And I ain't apologizing. Another person said that there's a distinction between people who want to learn about the place they are in and those who just like to be in Mexico because it's cheap. They just want the economic benefits of it. And yes, what this is osmosis, as you remove the barriers to doing business abroad. So for example, remote work, not having to show up in the office on a regular basis if you're a computer programmer. When you can work abroad, then the high cost of living, imagine that being a high concentration of a solvent. And when you remove the barriers, the wealth equilibrates. It comes to an equilibrium where it starts to spread around the world. Because when you're in a high cost area and you have the money and you have the privilege of being granted the American dollar as your currency, then osmotically it begins to move as the barriers come down. This is the simple effect, and for many people, you are able to arbitrage this opportunity to move abroad. And if you take advantage of it early, as we have, it's a beautiful thing. So for example, if you want to hire somebody here, it is way cheaper. A babysitter, for example, a nanny, a maid. If you want to purchase a house, it's about 1/3 of a price in a nice area of Mexico as the same casa in a city in the United States. Granted, there are cheaper places like Little Rock, Arkansas as compared to Los Angeles, but I'm talking about the higher tier cities that would compare to the same cities here in Mexico in terms of their notoriety. And there are other benefits here. I have never seen anybody get a parking ticket. They might exist in Mexico City, not where we are. And if you get pulled over by the police, it's a big hassle in the US. You can go to court, you have to pay hundreds of dollars in fine. Here, you give the cop $10 to $20 and they're gone. It's fantastic. Corruption suits ya. And also, what exacerbates the flight from the United States are the woke policies that favor criminals, where they don't want you to be able to defend yourself from them if you are attacked, because these are the privileged people. You have actually racism growing in the United States in terms of certain races, and you can imagine which ones, getting preferential treatment. And, all these things, and the high taxes, and California raising taxes and the super high cost of living, yeah, that actually does act as an ejection mode for Californians who are moving out of state over the border where their money goes farther. Again, it's a beautiful arbitrage opportunity. In terms of Mexicans that have seen their lives change, whenever you have migration that alters and shifts the status quo, you are going to get people that dislike it. While somebody like me can hire a couple of people at a time to keep the house in order, to babysit the kids, etc., I'm actually raising the wages here. It makes it a little bit tougher for the Mexican businesses because there's greater competition. The level of incomes in Mexico, because there's increased demand for the labor, will actually rise. And that's not a bad thing. It's just those people who had a kind of cushy life are also going to see their costs rise accordingly as demand from the money from the US dollar that's printed willy-nilly by the government is able to be spent here. And the truth is that Americans are in a fortunate position to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. But I still think it's absolutely ironic that Mexicans are up in arms about the migration of gringos coming in from the US and altering the landscape there, as Americans in the southern states, in the border states, complain about the same thing. And all the wokies tell them to just shut up. But are they going to tell the Mexicans who behave in the same manner, or perhaps even worse, as this article implies? I don't think so, because that would be racist of them. They're just racist against white people, just like the Mexicans are being in this moment in this article. Peace out. Thumb up the video, subscribe, hit the all notification bell. Enjoy this video, share it with a friend, guys, and have a fantastic day. Viva Mexico! I'm rooting for them in the World Cup coming up. Peace out.